What defines NBA greatness? Is it relentless work or raw, natural talent? Some players grind their way to the top, others were born to dominate. Today we're diving deep into the hardest workers versus the most gifted talents. Two paths, one goal. When it matters most, which one really wins? Well, let's go back to Italy in 1984. Kobe Bryant was just 6 years old. Born in Philadelphia, Kobe spent most of his childhood not in American gyms, but overseas where his father, Joe Jellybean Bryant, played professionally. While other kids were outside chasing soccer balls, Kobe was indoors, glued to grainy VHS tapes of NBA legends. At just 10 years old, he was rewinding footage of Michael Jordan, memorizing every jab step, pivot, and fadeaway, even studying how MJ walked after a bucket. By age 12, he said the unthinkable out loud. I'm going to be better than Michael Jordan. But how does a 12-year-old grow into a man who actually believes he can do it? Well, Kobe Bryant didn't just outwork his competition, he outworked expectations, narratives, even his own teammates. Because for Kobe, the obsession started early. The goal wasn't to fit in, it was to dominate, methodically, completely, and forever. Back in the US, Kobe enrolled at Lower Merion High School in Pennsylvania. He didn't just play well, he dominated. He averaged over 30 points per game, led his school to a state championship, and earned National Player of the Year honors. Then he made the decision almost no guard had made before. He declared for the NBA draft straight out of high school. But here's the thing, he wasn't a top pick. 13 teams passed on him. The Charlotte Hornets drafted him and traded him to the Lakers for Vlade Divac. So, how did a teenager, overlooked by half the league, become one of the greatest players of all time? Kobe's secret wasn't athleticism. It wasn't even skill, at least not at first. It was his work ethic. It was no secret around the league. Even a lot of his superstar counterparts acknowledged his dedication to his craft throughout his NBA career, especially during the Redeem Team Olympics in 2008. LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, and others were witness to his strict regime. While they were sleeping, he was grinding. While they were out after games, he kept to himself and kept working on his craft. Teammates say they showed up early to practice, and Kobe had already finished his first workout. He didn't just work harder than anyone else, he made you feel guilty for not keeping up. He built a reputation quickly with his 666 routine. 6 hours a day, 6 days a week for 6 months straight. Weights in the morning, skills in the afternoon, cardio at night. But that wasn't all. Why was Kobe in the gym at 4 a.m.? Why did he shoot 1,000 shots after games, even if he just scored 40? Because he didn't just want to win. He wanted full control. And here's the twist. Kobe wasn't the most athletic. He didn't have Vince Carter's bounce, he wasn't faster than Iverson, he didn't overpower like LeBron. So how did he dominate all of them? Because Kobe weaponized every ounce of his time. He turned practice into pressure and preparation into power. 5 championships, 2 finals MVPs, 81 points in a single game. But more than anything, he left behind a mentality. One that asks, if you're not doing everything you can, what makes you think you'll ever be great? How do you build a Hall of Fame career when the world says you're not fast enough, tall enough, or skilled enough? What makes a player with no clear position and no superstar traits become the heartbeat of a dynasty? Draymond Green's story isn't about talent, it's about identity and how he forced the NBA to respect his. Growing up in Saginaw, Michigan, Draymond didn't come from a powerhouse prep program or an elite AAU circuit. He wasn't highly ranked. He didn't go viral. He played with an edge because he had to, and because no one gave him another option. He committed to Michigan State, where head coach Tom Izzo described him as too emotional, too competitive, and too loud. But those traits? They became his greatest assets. So here's the first question. What do you do when your strengths don't fit the box the league has built? At 6'6" and over 230 pounds, Draymond was too small to be a center, too slow to be a wing, too erratic, some said, to be trusted with playmaking. He wasn't invited to the green room on draft night. He wasn't even a first-round pick. The Warriors took him 35th overall. And even then, many doubted he'd stay in the league more than a couple seasons. So, how did a tweener become the defensive quarterback of a dynasty? Draymond didn't rely on scoring. He mastered film study. He learned every offensive set, not just the Warriors, but the opponents. He knew where players would move before they did. He understood rotations, timing, angles, and more importantly, effort. What separates hustle from impact? For Draymond, it was a mental state. He anticipated passes, he baited guards into turnovers. He called out coverages in real time like a linebacker on the hardwood. But it wasn't just defense. When the Warriors entered their peak, the death lineup era, Draymond was a primary playmaker. Steph ran off screens, Klay spaced the floor, but Draymond read the floor like a point guard. Backdoor cuts, transition mismatches, high-low reads, all run through him. And he did it without needing to score. How do you become invaluable? When your stats don't tell the full story. You do the dirty work. You speak when no one else will. You defend everyone from centers to point guards, and you hold stars accountable even when they don't want to hear it. Draymond Green became a 4-time NBA champion, 4-time All-Star, and Defensive Player of the Year not because of what he had, but because of what he refused to let anyone take from him. He didn't change his game to fit the league. He made the league adjust to his impact. In a world obsessed with highlights and stats, Draymond proved that intangibles win titles too. How does someone with no scholarship offers, no direction, and no plan become the greatest rebounder in NBA history? How do you go from cleaning airport floors to cleaning glass against Shaq, Karl Malone, and David Robinson? Dennis Rodman's story is the definition of improbable. But was it talent? Or was it something harder to define and harder to replicate? Rodman wasn't a prodigy. He wasn't recruited. In fact, at 18 years old, he wasn't even playing basketball. He stood barely 5'11" and worked as a janitor at Dallas Fort Worth Airport, feeling forgotten and invisible. So, what changed? A growth spurt. A big one. Rodman suddenly shot up to 6'7" in his late teens, and for the first time, basketball came calling. He enrolled at Cook County College, then transferred to Southeastern Oklahoma State, an NAIA school far from the spotlight. But here's what separated him. While most players chase scoring, Rodman chased the ball. Every loose rebound, every deflection, every missed shot. He studied angles, watched film on where the ball would bounce, practiced tip-ins off the backboard by himself again and again. Here's a question. What makes someone decide that effort, not points, would be their superpower? Rodman was drafted 27th overall in 1986 by the Detroit Pistons, a team that didn't need another scorer. They needed a wild card, a warrior. He fit perfectly into the bad boys culture, playing like his life depended on every possession. And it kind of did. Rodman didn't party for fun, he partied to escape. He didn't play for attention, he played for survival. Basketball gave him structure, purpose, and in return, he gave it everything. How do you become the most dominant rebounder of a generation without elite size or strength? Rodman wasn't 7 feet tall. He didn't have broad shoulders or a bulky frame, but he had timing, anticipation, and a motor that never shut off. He'd spend hours watching shooters, studying the spin of the ball, the arc of their release, the direction their misses usually bounced. He'd dive for balls most players wouldn't even reach for. He'd defend power forwards and guards on the same possession, switching, scrambling, clawing for any advantage. And he made it work. Rodman won back-to-back titles with the Pistons. Then later, he joined the Bulls, where he became the defensive anchor and rebounder for Michael Jordan's second three-peat. Dennis Rodman never led the league in points. He never had a signature move, but he led the league in rebounds 7 times, sometimes by 5+ boards per game. He didn't care about highlights, he cared about winning, and doing the dirty work no one else wanted to do. Because when it came to hustle, energy, and effort, no one worked harder or weirder than Dennis Rodman. Tracy McGrady's path to NBA stardom wasn't built through the traditional spotlight. In fact, heading into his senior year of high school, he wasn't even a national name. He played at Auburndale High in Florida, small gym, smaller hype. Then he transferred to Mount Zion Christian Academy in North Carolina. And in one season, everything changed. He dominated national camps, rose to the #1 high school prospect in the country. and outshined future stars at the Adidas ABCD camp. Just months later, he declared for the 1997 NBA draft and was taken 9th overall by the Toronto Raptors. But Grady didn't need time to grow into the game. The game fit him from day one. At 6'8" with a 7'2" wingspan, T-Mac moved like a guard but soared like a center. He had the height of a forward, the footwork of a two-guard, and the elevation of a dunk contest champion all in one frame. He didn't just play basketball, he glided through it. But how can someone that smooth still be so dominant? How does a player who rarely looked like he was trying still drop 13 points in 35 seconds? T-Mac's game was instinctual. He didn't rely on systems, he just read the floor and reacted. Step backs, floaters, no-look passes, hang-time moves in traffic all came naturally. Tracy McGrady wasn't built in the gym, he was born with feel, born with flow, and when healthy, he was unguardable. 2-time scoring champ, 7-time All-Star, Hall of Famer. He didn't need to grind like everyone else, because he played a game only a few could even understand.
When you just talk about practice, we sitting here, I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice.
Before Allen Iverson ever stepped on an NBA court, he was already a legend. Not just in basketball, but football too. At Bethel High School in Virginia, Iverson led his team to state championships in both sports, electrifying crowds with touchdown runs on Friday nights and 40-point games on Saturday. He was so dominant, the Associated Press named him the National High School Athlete of the Year in both sports. It wasn't just talent, it was otherworldly talent. But just as the spotlight began to shine brighter, it almost disappeared altogether. In 1993, a bowling alley altercation led to Iverson's arrest and a highly publicized trial that divided the community. With grainy surveillance footage and limited evidence, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison at age 17. He served 4 months before Governor Douglas Wilder granted him clemency, but the damage was done. Colleges backed off, offers dried up. That is, until Georgetown coach John Thompson stepped in. Thompson offered more than just a scholarship. He gave Iverson a lifeline, a chance. At Georgetown, Al didn't just play, he unleashed. He averaged 22 points, 4 steals, and 3 assists per game over 2 seasons, transforming the Hoyas into must-watch TV. His quickness? Unstoppable. His fearlessness? Unmatched. In 1996, he declared for the NBA draft and was taken number 1 overall. The shortest player ever drafted in that spot at just barely 6 feet tall. And yet, he didn't just belong. He bent the league to his style. But how does a player that size dominate a game designed for giants? How does someone with no traditional NBA build lead the league in scoring 4 times? Iverson's secret was natural rhythm. He didn't play with mechanics, he played with feel. His crossover was like jazz, unpredictable, improvisational, and devastating. Ask Michael Jordan, who got famously shook by a rookie Iverson in one of the most iconic isolation plays in history. He had the uncanny ability to change direction without slowing down, to elevate in traffic and absorb contact, and to contort mid-air like a gymnast while still finishing with perfect touch. One of his greatest showcases? Game 1 of the 2001 NBA Finals. Iverson dropped 48 points on a stacked Lakers team that hadn't lost a single playoff game that year. Against Kobe, against Shaq, in their house. He didn't just score, he got buckets. He hit pull-up jumpers, floated in runners, and made impossible layups look routine. And when he stepped over Tyronn Lue after hitting a clutch shot in overtime, it became a symbol. Not of arrogance, but of a small guard standing taller than the moment itself. Iverson didn't rely on screens or play design. He created offense. Even when defenses collapsed, even when he was double-teamed, he could score 40 points without a single assist needed, just off instinct, angles, and elite body control. Allen Iverson was more than just a scorer. He was a cultural shift, a symbol of individuality, defiance, and raw talent in its purest form. He won an MVP, led a scrappy Sixers team to the finals, and inspired a generation of players who didn't fit the mold, but still wanted to break it. Because Iverson didn't play the game the right way, He played it his way. And when your gift is that real, that unfiltered, you don't adapt to the league adapts to you. Michael Beasley might be the most naturally talented player to never reach his ceiling. At 6'9" with a 7'1" wingspan and left-handed finesse, Beasley had every tool and used them with ease. In high school, he was unstoppable, averaging over 28 points and 16 rebounds per game, dominating elite national competition without breaking a sweat. He was ranked number 1 in the country above names like Derrick Rose, Kevin Love, and James Harden. Then came Kansas State. As a freshman, Beasley put together one of the most dominant college seasons ever. 26.2 points, 12.4 rebounds per game, 53% shooting, and 28 double-doubles. He made it all look automatic. He didn't just score, he scored effortlessly from every spot on the floor. Turnarounds, catch and shoots, putbacks, face-ups, fadeaways, and somehow it all looked like a pickup game to him. But how can a player that gifted never fully stick in the league? How did he struggle to find his role on the floor? Was it the system, the fit, or something deeper? Something talent alone couldn't fix? Beasley was drafted 2nd overall in 2008, right behind Derrick Rose. But while Rose became an MVP, Beasley became an enigma. He bounced from Miami to Minnesota to Phoenix, putting up 20-point games one week and disappearing the next. Coaches praised his skill and questioned his focus. He admitted later he never truly watched film, rarely studied opponents. He relied on feel, not preparation. Michael Beasley had the kind of talent that front offices dream about, but natural ability can't always carry the weight of pressure, structure, or expectations. He gave us flashes of brilliance, but flashes aren't a legacy. Beasley's story is a reminder. Talent is a ticket, but it's not the journey. So, who really wins? The grinders or the gifted? Kobe, Draymond, and Rodman remind us that obsession, sacrifice, and effort can close any talent gap. They made greatness non-negotiable through routine and repetition. T-Mac, Iverson, and Beasley showed us another side, the brilliance of raw ability, the kind that can't be taught, but also the risk that comes when you rely on it too much. The truth? Greatness in the NBA often comes from both. Talent may spark the fire, but hard work keeps it burning. Now, let us ask you, if you could build one NBA player, would you start with the talent or the work ethic? Let us know in the comments.